إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Chapter 76, the first physical Umrah to be done. Umrah al-Qaeda was the first Umrah performed after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The Prophet ﷺ left Medina on Dhul al-Qaeda on 70 with around 2,000 Muslims, bringing all of their weapons with them. When the Quraysh heard that 2,000 Muslims were approaching, they sent out a delegation led by Mikraz, and they said to the Prophet ﷺ, "O Muhammad, we have never seen you to be treacherous in anything, small or big. So why have you brought weapons when we agreed that you will not come with no weapons other than the sword on your scabbard? We see that you have horses, armor, arrows, and ethics." The Prophet ﷺ responded, "And we shall not enter Mecca except as we agreed. We are still outside of Mecca." He brought the weapons all the way to Mecca but left them outside of the city. He entered Mecca only with the sword on his side, which was with what the treaty has said. To ensure the safety of the Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ stationed 200 Muslim to guard the weapon outside of Haram, while 1,800 Muslim performed tawaf. Then they switched, allowing the 200 Muslim to do the tawaf. The Prophet ﷺ did not trust the Quraysh and therefore took every measure to protect the Muslim. The Quraysh of Mecca divided themselves into three groups when the Muslim arrived to the Umrah al-Qaeda. One group stayed in their house for 3 days, avoiding any interaction with Muslim. The second group stayed in Dar al-Nadwa, which was a large gathering place where they would observe the event from distance. And a third group left Mecca completely, camping outside of Mecca Valley for 3 days. This way they're not associating with any Muslims.
None of them wanted to interact with the Muslims out of fear and political reasons. Meanwhile, a rumor spread among the Quraysh: the diseases of Medina have made the Muslims weak. Mecca had a harsh, dry climate with few diseases, while Medina had water and farms, which led to different illnesses. The Quraysh thought living in Medina had weakened the Muslims. A rumor spread among the Quraysh: the Muslims have returned weaklings. Some of the Quraysh who had not fought against the Muslims had not seen their relatives for 6.5 years. Since families used to live together back then, this was a long time, making the rumor believable for them. When the Prophet ﷺ heard this, he commanded the Muslims to do 3 things. 1. Raise their voices loudly with talbiyah. 2. Expose their right shoulders during tawaf. This was the first time this sunnah was introduced. 3. Perform ramal, a brisk and energetic walk for the first 3 rounds of tawaf. Since the Kaaba wasn't crowded like today, the Sahaba could almost run while walking fast. When the Quraysh saw this, they said, "By Allah, there is nothing wrong with them. We have never seen them stronger than this." The sight of 2,000 Muslims doing tawaf left a lasting impact on the Quraysh. Soon after this, Umrah, 3 Quraysh leaders embraced Islam.
Marriage to the last wife. The Prophet ﷺ married his last wife, and her name is Maymuna bint al-Harith after Umrah al-Qaeda. On the way out of Mecca, Al-Abbas, his uncle, suggested to the Prophet ﷺ to marry Maymuna, who was his sister-in-law. Maymuna was a sister of Fadl and Fadl's Abbas' wife. She had been married to Abu Rahim, but after his death she became widow. She didn't want to stay with Quraysh, so she told her sister, "Find me a husband." Fadl informed Al-Abbas, who immediately went to the Prophet ﷺ. He praised Maymuna and asked his opinion about marrying her. The Prophet ﷺ agreed, and Al-Abbas acted as her wali, taking in charge of her marriage ceremony. On the 3rd day, the Quraysh came and said, "Your time is up, you need to leave." The Prophet ﷺ tried to renegotiate, saying, "Is it really that big of a deal if I stay a little longer? Let me be a groom among you. Tomorrow we can have a big feast together and you can come and enjoy the food." The Quraysh did not budge, and they did not change their mind and said, "We do not need your food." So the Prophet ﷺ honored the treaty and he left Mecca without an incident. As he was leaving Mecca, the daughter of Hamza, as the Muslims are leaving, they see a young girl who's 6 or 7 years old came running after them to call out to the Prophet ﷺ, saying, "Oh my uncle, take me, don't leave me Mecca." She was the daughter of Hamza, and Hamza has been married to Salama in Mecca, but after their separation, she had remained in Mecca.
When the Sahaba realized who she was, Ali took her by the hand and gave her to Fatima, saying, "We will take care of her. After all, she was his first cousin." However, Zayd ibn Haritha also stepped forward and said, the Prophet ﷺ made me brothers with Hamza, so I am his brother and she is my niece. I will take care of her. Then Ja'far, the older brother of Ali, came forward and said, I have the same rank as Ali. I am her first cousin, but not only that, my wife is her blood aunt, so I have more right to take care of her. The three of them, Ali, Zayd, and Ja'far, began disputing over who had the right to take care of her. The Prophet ﷺ had to intervene. He began by praising all three of them. To Ali he said, you are from me, and I am from you, meaning you have a special status as you were raised in my household, and now you are married to my daughter. To Zayd he said, you are our brother and protector, a reminder of his close bond with the Prophet ﷺ. To Ja'far he said, you resemble me the most, both physically and in character. Since Ja'far was closer in age to the Prophet ﷺ, and they were both raised in the same house of Abu Talib. Finally, the Prophet ﷺ ruled, Ja'far, she is yours because your wife is her blood aunt, and the aunt is like the mother.
Chapter 77, Three Major Conversion. Umar ibn al-As was a politician and a nobleman of Quraysh. He became increasingly insecure as the power of Islam began to grow. He feared, what would I happen if Mecca was conquered by the Muslim? So he began to wonder, where would I go? After the Battle of Khandaq, Umar ibn al-As realized the situation was shifting. He said to his companion, it became clear to me after Khandaq, it was only a matter of time before Mecca would be next. He gathered a group of his friends and told them, I have been telling you that the affair of this man, Muhammad ﷺ, will soon prevail, and I have an idea. His friend asked, what is the idea? He replied, let us migrate to Najashi, the Christian king in Abyssinia, and live under him. If Muhammad ﷺ conquer, we will be safe under the Najashi. It is better than living under Muhammad. But if the Quraysh wins, we can return to our place of honor. At that moment, Umar ibn al-As did not want to engage in any more battles with Islam, and instead he looked away to secure his position, and he just left. While they were in Abyssinia, Umar ibn al-As and his friends saw Umar ibn Umayyah delivering a message from the Prophet ﷺ to Najashi, asking him to summon Ja'far and others Muslim back to Medina. Al-Damri was the messenger, but unlike the other Muslim in Abyssinia, he didn't have any protection from the Najashi. At this point, Umar ibn al-As, who did not know that Najashi is actually Muslim, thought to himself, let me ask permission from Najashi to kill this man. It would give me special privilege to the Quraysh. So he entered in Najashi court, brought him some gift, and said, this man that represents Islam we despise. He has killed many of our noble men back in Badr. Would you allow me to kill him in revenge? Then Najashi became furious. He grabbed Umar ibn al-As with his hand, smacked it on his own nose, which was shown as extreme disgust and anger. Umar ibn al-As was so terrified of the king Najashi, anger, that he wishes the ground would swallow him and eat him up. As soon as he saw Najashi furious anger, he immediately fell to the ground and apologized, saying, I did not know you would get this angry. If I would have known, I would have never even asked such a thing. Then Najashi replied, do you wish for me to deliver into your hands the envoy of upon who the great spirit Jibreel descends? He continued, woe to you, Umar. Follow this man, the Prophet ﷺ, for he is upon the truth, and he will certainly be victorious over his enemy, just the way Moses was victorious over Pharaoh. In that moment, Umar ibn al-As realized the truth of Islam. He said, will you accept my Islam on the behalf of the Prophet ﷺ? The Najashi agreed, and Umar accepted Islam in front of him, giving him the bay'ah and the pledge of allegiance. When Umar left, he immediately told his companion, but later he didn't tell his companion, but later he met with Khalid ibn Walid and Uthman ibn Talha, who were already heading to Medina to accept Islam. He actually ran into them. He didn't know they were coming. As he asked them, where are you going? They replied, we are going to Muhammad ﷺ to accept Islam. Khalid ibn Walid said, this matter is clear, that this man is a prophet. I am going to accept Islam. For how long can we deny the truth? Umar ibn al-As replied, by Allah, this is exactly why I came back from Abyssinia.
The three men, Amr ibn al-As, Khalid ibn al-Walid, and Uthman ibn Talha, were the last group to enter Medina and accept Islam before the conquest of Mecca. When they arrived, Khalid was the first to accept Islam in front of the Prophet ﷺ. Then it was Amir's turn. As Amir stretched out his hand to pledge allegiance, the Prophet ﷺ grasped his hand, but not by the palm, and said, "O Amir, what is the matter?" Amir replied, "Before I embrace Islam, I have a condition." The Prophet ﷺ asked, "What is that condition?" Amir said, "That all my past sins be forgiven." The Prophet ﷺ responded, "O Amir, don't you know that 3 things wipe away all sins before? 1. Embracing Islam. 2. Migration, Hijrah. 3. Hajj." The Prophet ﷺ was reminding him that by accepting Islam and migrating, his sins had already been forgiven.
The conversion of Khalid ibn Walid, that's the next story. Khalid ibn Walid was raised in luxury and being rich, and he was trained in the art of war and being a horseman. Although he did not fight in Badr, but he did participate in every battle afterward. In each of these battles, Khalid was a key figure, causing major damage to the Muslim enemies. At the Battle of Uhud, he played a role in the defeat of Muslims. At Khandaq, he was one of the few who broke through a defense, the trench, and made it into Medina. Khalid ibn Walid actually narrated in the first person, and he says, "When Allah wanted good for me, He threw the love of Islam into my heart. I thought to myself, I fought against Muhammad in many battles. Every time I participate, I felt that I was being turned away, and I sensed that Muhammad would be victorious. The final turning point was actually at Hudaybiyah. When I met him at Asfan, I was ready to attack when they were praying Asr, and as if while he's praying Asr, he senses that I'm about to attack, and he knows exactly what I'm thinking. Even at Hudaybiyah, he managed to outflank me and pass through me without being able to stop him. I realized this man is protected by something, and I could never reach him. After the cheat of Hudaybiyah, I realized that he would surely be victorious. So I asked to myself, where should I go? Abyssinia? But his followers are already there. Should I just run to Rome? But I will have to become a Christian and change my culture and live as a stranger. I was confused for a long time until Umar al-Qada, which we just talked about, when the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca, the first physical Umrah, and he asked about me. My brother, who'd been a Muslim for a while, has already embraced Islam. He sent me a letter. He wrote a letter and left it for me. And this letter is from Khalid, brother to Khalid ibn Walid.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As to what follows, I have never seen anything stranger than you running away from Islam, especially since you are so intelligent. How long will you continue to oppose Islam? When the Prophet ﷺ came to Mecca, he asked, "Where is Khalid?" I told him, "Allah will bring him." The Prophet ﷺ said, "It is not befitting for someone like him to neglect Islam. If he were to join us and use his talents and energy against the mushrikeen, it would be better for him and we would honor him. So my dear brother, make up for what you have missed, because many opportunities have passed you." Wa alaikum assalam.
After reading this letter, Khalid ibn Walid decided to convert to Islam. He thought to himself, who can I go to take with me a friend to this journey, to go Hijrah? He approached Safwan ibn Umayyah, a close friend of him, and said, "What do you think about embracing Islam?" But Safwan replied, "Even if I were the last person alive in this world, I would never embrace Islam." Remember, their fathers died at the Battle of Badr, and their fathers were the evil people of Quraysh. Khalid ibn Walid continued, "Then I went to my childhood friend Akrama ibn Abu Jahl, whose dad is Abu Jahl, the one that died at Badr. I told him, I feel that I should embrace Islam. Akrama panicked and started raising his voice, shouting, "You are going to leave us, O son of a Walid? Wallahi, this is not gonna happen." In his panic, he called Abu Sufyan and other senior members of Quraysh. They all gathered at Akrama's house. He then spilled the beans to them. Now Khalid is surrounded by the senior figures of Quraysh. The situation escalated to a point where swords were drawn up to him, and one of them said, "If you embrace Islam, you will face this sword." At this point, Akrama himself was shocked and asked, "Will you kill him just because he wants to change his religion?" He diffused the situation and he told them to go home.
Khalid realized that he could no longer stay in Mecca after this incident. That very night, he and Uthman ibn Talha decided to leave Mecca. Khalid was the one who gave Uthman ibn Talha the da'wah to embrace Islam. The conversion of Uthman ibn Talha. Khalid was the one who invited Uthman to Islam, and that very night the two of them left Mecca without telling anyone. The next day or so they bumped into Amr ibn al-As, who was also on his way to Medina. Uthman ibn Talha, who later became a key holder of the Kaaba after the conquest of Mecca, was among the three who embraced Islam during this time. The three of them, Khalid, Uthman and Amr, became the last batch to embrace Islam before the conquest of Mecca. Allah praised those who embraced Islam before the victory, as He says in the Quran, "Those of you who donated and fought before the victory, before the conquest of Mecca, and umbrelled, they are far greater in the rank than those who donated and fought afterward," in the Quran, chapter 57, verse 10.
Chapter 78, Marching to Ghassan, the Battle of Mutah. The Battle of Mutah was the only battle during the Prophet ﷺ lifetime where the Muslims fought against the Romans. After the Prophet ﷺ death, there was many battles with the Romans, but this battle was in the Prophet ﷺ lifetime. Mutah is a small village located between Amman and Al-Qurq in Jordan, which was fully controlled by Romans. A companion, Al-Harith, was sent a message to Romans. As he passed throughout the village, they captured him and took him to their leader. Their leader asked, who was Arab, "Who are you?" Al-Harith replied, "I am an envoy of the Prophet ﷺ, and here is the ladder to Heraclius. Please let me go." The Ghassanid leader mocked him, tortured him, then killed him with his own hand. And this was a direct insult to the Prophet ﷺ and a direct insult to Islam. The leader thought he was saved by being protected by the Roman army, but the Prophet ﷺ sent an army to comfort the Ghassanid. In Jumad al-Awwal, in the 8th year of Hijrah, the Prophet ﷺ announced that he wanted to go to the Muslims to attack Ghassan. It would take about a month travel, and he encouraged all the Muslims to volunteer. Around 3,000 companions signed up, and Khalid ibn Walid was with them too. They left Medina on a Friday morning. Ibn al-Abbas was unsure whether to join the army immediately or pray Jum'ah with the Prophet ﷺ. So he decided to pray Jum'ah, then catch up to the army. After the prayer, the Prophet ﷺ noticed Abbas in the masjid, and he asked him, "Why didn't you leave with the army?" Ibn Abbas replied, "I wanted to pray with you and then catch up with the army. This way I can earn the reward of praying Jama'ah with you." The Prophet ﷺ said, "If you were to give away all the wealth in the world as charity, you will not match the reward of you going with them early, leaving with them early." The Prophet ﷺ appointed 3 commanders for the Battle of Mutah, one after the other. He appointed Zayd ibn al-Haritha, his adopted son, as a leader, saying, "If Zayd is killed, then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib shall be in charge. And if Ja'far is killed, then Abdullah ibn Rawah shall lead. And if Abdullah ibn Rawah is killed, then let the Muslims choose who should be their leader."
The Prophet ﷺ accompanied the army to the hill outside Medina. Abdullah ibn Rawaha was seen crying. So someone asked him, "Why are you crying?" He replied, "I am not crying out of love for this world, nor because I have an attachment to it. I am crying because of the verse in the Quran, 'Every one of you shall pass over it,' Jahannam. This is a promise from Allah, and I am worried about crossing over the Sirat, the bridge over hell. What will I do then?" One of those remaining behind said, "May Allah accompany you and bring you back safely." Ibn Rawaha responded with a verse of poetry, "As for me, I ask for Allah's forgiveness and for a mighty blow that causes my blood to gush out, so that when the people pass by my grave, they will say, Allah guided him to be a warrior, and how rightly guided he was." Abdullah had an orphan teenager under his care named Zayd ibn Arqam. One night Zayd overheard Abdullah saying poetry, "Let me die, O Allah, and be a shaheed." Zayd was moved to tears upon hearing this. Abdullah noticed Zayd's tears, jokingly said to him, "O foolish one, what would it matter to you if I became a shaheed and Allah blesses me, and you get the camel to yourself on the way back?"
Abdullah was very well known to participate in the Treaty of Aqaba, which was the first group that brought Islam to Medina, and he was one of the Prophet ﷺ who sent back from Badr to deliver the news of the victory, which the hypocrite mocked him, saying there's no way the Muslim had won. Once, while back, the Prophet ﷺ was given a khutbah in the masjid. Abdullah was about to enter the masjid and he heard the word sit down. Without understanding the context, he just sat right outside of the masjid, and this showed his complete obedience and commitment to the word of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ smiled and made dua for him. During Umrah al-Qa'dah, the Umrah we just mentioned, Abdullah was singing poetry about the Prophet ﷺ that hurt the Quraysh. Umar ibn al-Khattab said to him, "O Abdullah, how dare you sing poetry in front of the Prophet ﷺ while you are in state of ihram?" Prophet ﷺ replied, "Let him be. His words are more painful to the Quraysh than the arrows coming from the heavens." As the Muslims were marching towards Jordan, the Ghassad heard about the approach and they panicked. They quickly sent a messenger to the Christian allies and the Arab Christian tribe around them, and they gathered to face the Muslims. The Roman also sent a small group of soldiers. By the time the Muslims were few days away from Mutah, the Ghassans had gathered an army of 10,000 men to face the Muslim, and 1,000 were from the Rome. So 9,000 were Arab Christian tribe. The rest of them were Arab Christian tribe. When the news reached the Muslim camp, they were uncertain on what to do. They camped for 2 days, debating what to do next. Initially, they planned to fight 5,000 of them, but now they are 10,000 and they are completely outnumbered, including with the Romans with them.
One group suggested, "Let's stay here and send a messenger to the Prophet ﷺ for his guidance. He may send reinforcements, tell us to retreat, or give us another command. We will follow whatever he decides." Another group argued, "We didn't come this far to turn back now. We've already shown our strength and made an impact by stepping into their land. Our mission has become accomplished." Zayd ibn Arqam turned to Abdullah ibn Rawah and asked, "What is your opinion?" Abdullah stood and delivered a powerful speech saying, "O people, what you feel is exactly what you seek. Why are you hesitating? Allah will grant us one of two things, either victory or shahada. We know the victory doesn't come through numbers or weapons, but through Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. So let's move forward and face one of these two inevitable outcomes." Everyone agreed to move forward and face the Roman and Arab Christians. As they continued their march, they passed a village where the inhabitants, knowing what was happening, attacked the Muslim army with arrows. Several Sahaba were injured and one of them died, but this occurred at the back of the Muslim army.
So before they reached the Battle of Mutah, they crossed a small village, and the small village killed few Muslims. So some of the soldiers suggested, "Let's go back and fight the village." They could have easily defeated the village, but Zayd ibn Haritha responded, "No, the real enemy is in front of us. We cannot afford to be distracted by these small villages, and it will only tire us and it will divide us completely." The Muslim decided to fight in the large plain called Mutah. They chose the location because it was near a river, providing easy access to water, and if they had to retreat, they can easily pull back. The army was divided into 3 groups, the middle, the right, and the left. Abu Hurairah participated in this battle, which was his first battle to participate. When he saw the large army, his eyes were shocked, 10,000 in front of him. One Sahaba noticed his reaction and asked, "What is the matter with you, O Abu Hurairah? Are you shocked because of the size of the army?" Abu Hurairah replied, "Yes." The Sahaba responded, "But you were not with us at Badr. Let me remind you that our victory was not because of the size of the army." This is it for chapter 78. Chapter 79 next week will be the battle begun of the Mutah.